So as I said there at the end of that first part of the video, this is one type of glue, hardhead cement type glue that you can use. You don't have to use this specifically. There's a lot of different types of these out on the market. One of the reasons I like this is because it's got the built-in brush, makes it easy to go ahead and apply this and store it. So I think it works. I've been using it for a few years now, and I also use it on a couple other things that we tie for some of the little teaser flies and things that we do with the fluke, and trying to pick up some of those fish that follow. So first thing I do is I just put a little bit of glue on here, not a lot, and start with some base wraps of my thread. And of course I like to, I don't want to get a really big base on here, but I want to get enough to where I feel like that my materials will stay good and tight to the body of the ball head jig. And then of course my tag end I bring out here to the left, and I wrap that in a few times to get it good. And then with these ones I bring it back once more and get a couple more wraps on it, to kind of pinch it in there and to get a good bite with this. And it gets a little twisted up in there, but then I'll go ahead and take my scissors, snip that off there, get rid of that, and then just go ahead and finish wrapping that in and just get a good kind of base of wraps. At this point you can go ahead and let that dry if you want. I generally don't wait very long, just because I want to try and produce 2 or 3 of these at a time quickly, to be able to take out on the water with me. And that way, if you do end up breaking one off, or it's pretty rare that you get these hung up, because you're really swimming the bait, so you shouldn't have to worry about getting those hung up. And then the next thing I like to do is to go ahead and get the tail started. You can see, I'll try and hold this up so you can kind of see the direction of the hair. It flows and it angles all in the same direction. And the one thing you want to be careful of when you are deciding where you want to cut your tail based on that length that you're looking for, you don't want to cut this straight across perpendicular to the strip. You want to go ahead and try and cut it at about a 45-degree angle. And the reason for that is so that you get good overlay. If you look at the end of this tail, you can see how these hair fibers are still sticking out past the end, and so it gives it that real finished look instead of just being a flat cut on the end. It just looks a little more natural, and I think it looks better, so that's the other reason I do it. So yeah, so I go ahead and cut that off at a 45 like that, and you get a little bit of extra fur kind of comes off of there. And then I go and I clean off just a little bit of the fur on the end here, because this is the part I'm going to tie into my bait, and I want to get a good bite with the thread and make sure that that this bait stays intact for as long as I can, because you can catch 30, 40, 50 fish off of these if you take your time and put them together well. So then this next part of this, I start tying in the tail. Now you can do this with the hair up or the hair down. I personally like to run it with the hair up, because I generally swim these baits a little bit up in the water column, and so I'm expecting that this is what that fish is going to be seeing, and I think it gives a better presentation to the bait while it's swimming through the water. And again, you want to just center this up on the body of the hook, excuse me, not on the body of the hook, but the shaft of the hook, and you want to try and keep that as centered as much, because that way it looks like a real tail coming off of there. And I get some wraps in there, get that good and bit on there, and then I go ahead and bring this down to the end, towards the end of the hook there, so that I can start tying in a little bit of the chenille body. So this part, it's really, you can see it looks rather kind of wide, but it's really not once you get it in there and you get the pseudo hair wrapped around the jig itself too. So then I'll take a little bit of this off just with my fingers. I'll just pull a little bit of this off to expose the thread at the center of this chenille. And the reason I do that is because that's what I want to start my wrappings on, to kind of get a good bite and to hold this directly in line with the jig itself. So then I'll go ahead and get a few wraps in this, get that started and get it bit in there. And you want to capture it as many times as you can. If you don't, it's okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work again from the back of the hook towards the head of the bait. And so I'm going to bring this thread up this way a little bit so that I can tie this in, and then I'll just start. First I'm going to clip some of this off so that I don't end up with a big old mess. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll start some nice wraps here to get a good body, and then I'll angle this chenille forward to really start to create some profile and some bulk to this this body portion that I'm trying to create. You don't need a lot on this, and I definitely want to stay shy of this area between the front of the chenille and the back of the ball head here, because I'm going to fill that in the next step with my pseudo hair. So what I'll do here is I'll cross these two up. I'll cross my thread up with the chenille to get a good bite on that end piece of the chenille, and then I'll just go ahead and cut this off and save this piece for the next jig. And then I'll just get some good wraps on this and bite this in so that my chenille part of the body never comes undone. And you can make that piece right there that you see as wide as you want. You can start it a little bit further back on the hook if you like. You can take this whole part and you can shift it towards the back if you want to. But I like to kind of keep this stuff as close to the front of the bait as I can, to allow the tail to do what it wants to do naturally without being too constricted with the shaft part of the hook, and then also to let this pseudo hair that I put on here swell up and breathe and pulsate in the water based on the type of retrieve. If I'm fishing it really fast with some slight twitches, or if I'm working the bait more in a yo-yo style application, it gives that material the ability to do natural things. So that's the reason for it. I'm not saying that that's the only way you can do it or it's the right way to do it. I just, after tying quite a few of these baits, I believe that that's really the key to it. Next part is getting this pseudo hair into the equation, and you can see it's kind of hard to handle it a little bit on the bait itself. Excuse me, on the pelt part, if you will, even though it's synthetic, and it's got a lot of like under fur, so it's a little hard to handle at the start of this process. So what I usually do is just put a little twist in it. It's like a half twist to get it to kind of tighten up a little, and then I come in here and I go ahead and snip this all out, and I end up with a pretty good clump, you can see. And it's really like three pieces or three sections of this hair. You can kind of see it there. And then the next thing I'll do is actually bite this down really hard between my thumb and my finger, and I'll start pulling out this under fur right in here to reduce the bulkiness of this particular type of material. It's got a lot of internal, I mean, look at that. I pull that out, and it doesn't, well, I won't say what it looks like, but I think you know what I mean. And then I'll clean this up and get this ready to thinned out as much as possible. And then I'll come back one more time, and I want to get a nice clean edge cut on this material so that it lays up really nice and really clean within the bait itself. And so that's really the first piece of this that I want to get in here. And again, I start on this back side of the bait, and I do that so that I can proportionately work my way around the sides of this so that it's as clean looking as possible. And so I'll just go ahead and get a wrap or two on here, and then what I'll try to do is just take my fingers and spread this out a little bit, you know, try and fan it out, bulk it out, you know, because you don't want to put a lot of material in here with this, because it's one of those same types of things where less is more. The less you put in here of this, the better it breathes, the better it looks, and also it saves on the material, especially with this pseudo hair, since it's getting so hard to find. This craft hair, you can get this in just about any color you can imagine, and it's pretty readily available. But the pseudo hair that Hairline was producing for quite a while, they still are, but like the earth tones are getting really tough to locate now. So then I'll just go ahead and get this wrapped in here really well, and I'll bounce around to try to get these fibers down a little bit, and then I'll leave it at that for now. And you can still see it's not looking perfectly clean, and that's the other thing too. You know, you don't have to be tying these baits like you're, you know, like it's professionally done, or that it's in, you know, a factory style setting. When you're doing these at home, you can play around with, you know, whatever styles and colors you want to, and you know, that's, if it looks like that when it's done, that's, the fish don't care. They really don't care. Really, the body material and the tail are really the key here. You know, some of the old timers I know are really big on the eyes being on these baits. Personally, I do it because it just kind of adds a nice little finish feature, if you will. But honestly, if you want my opinion on it, I don't think it matters at all. But I do it sometimes, and sometimes I don't. It just depends on if I'm trying to produce multiple baits or just a few baits. So then I'll go ahead and rotate my vise. I'll just go to this side, and again, I'll go ahead and get myself a nice little clump of craft fur. And again, it's the same. This is a little more here, but when these fibers get kind of segregated onto this synthetic pelt, you kind of just got to clean it up because you can't waste it. And then I just go ahead and pull out this under fur, because one, it's not needed, and two, it just creates a lot of bulk in trying to tie the bait in into its completion. So then I'll get that cleaned up, and then I'll come back and get rid of that pile that's not even needed. Now I've got a pretty clean edge here to go ahead and start laying this up in here to getting the sides of this bait pretty well dialed in. And again, I'm going to spread it out as much as possible. You can see it kind of rolls around to like the chin area, if you will, of the bait. And then I'll go ahead and get some good wraps, and I'll try to do a better job this time of keeping my wraps all in line with each other. You know, and it's not biting. You know, the bigger thread helps with this too. It really does. And, you know, if you get, you know, a little bit more consistent with your wraps than what I'm doing, you can make these baits look really clean and make them look really good. And you can kind of see, here, I'll move that out of the way. You can kind of see right there in that image how that's kind of flaring out, and you know, the tail has got you know, some space between it and the actual pseudo hair fibers. Now you can see I'm kind of, you know, wrapped to about that point, and then you go back to this other side, and I'm about the same area. So I'm going to go ahead and put one last little piece of the pseudo hair, and I don't know who cut that. If I find out who cut that, I'm gonna make them buy me a new one, because I must have done it, but I don't know why I would have done that, because that's quite a bit of a waste of fur right all through here. So anyways, I'll go ahead and get another nice clump here, twist that up, make it a little easier to cut off the pelt portion of the material. Oops. And then again, go in and start removing that under fur. I know it seems kind of repetitive, but I'm telling you, if you take the time to put some of these together, and I mean, you can buy these too, you know, but the ones that I bought over the years to try to, you know, kind of explore with this topic, every time I got something, I was like, nah, I don't like this, I don't like that. I kind of talked about that in that other post that I did about rebuilding and revitalizing baits. There's really something unique about creating these and making these to fit your style or your confidence. And you know, Don and I are going to talk a lot about, you know, fishing, you know, fishing your way, fishing your confidence, because it is a huge factor in being productive and in being consistent. You know, if you can be consistent each time you go out, and of course, like anybody, there's going to be really good days and there's going to be days that you're going to struggle. But if you're consistent in staying positive with what your approach is and learning from, you know, the good days and the bad days, you'll have significantly better results. So I'll go ahead and get in here. And this, you know, again, this bait's going to have just probably a little too much material on it, but I'm just trying to show you, you know, some examples of this. And I'm going to go ahead and spread this out, get some nice consistency around the bait, and then I'm going to go ahead and get some wraps on this and kind of hold that fur back. You know, that's the other thing that's nice about pseudo hair too, is that it's very easy to manage, where a lot of natural fibers can kind of get tough to manage when you're wrapping these baits and finishing these baits. And the pseudo hair it just performs really well, and it lasts. If you do a good job tying these baits, it'll last a very, very long time, very long time. So there, I think, you know, we're looking pretty good. It's a pretty big wrap. You can see I missed some stuff there on that part of the bait, which honestly I don't really care, because that right there, I guarantee you that's going to catch fish. I mean, it's Bob, Don's dad, and myself, and my dad have all been, you know, throwing these baits and using these baits over the last couple years, and there's been some amazing days. In fact, there's been days where these hair jigs have significantly outperformed the best fluke fishermen, and it's been pretty eye-opening. So anyways, so getting to the finishing stages of this, you can do a couple things. You can do a lot of different types of closure pieces here, closure wrappings. You know, you can do where you take, you know, some braid, and you can go ahead and you know, wrap this braid in there and bring your tag in back through, you know, the loop, and you can do it that way, and that gives you a good finish to these jigs. But a lot of times I'll just go ahead and do just some standard half hitches, and you know, just snug it up good and tight like that, and then go ahead and throw, you know, a couple more in it. And really, I've found, as much as those seem like they're not really much of a knot, if you put, you know, at least 3 of those in there, and then you put a nice even coat of the head cement on there, I have yet to have this come apart. Now, I'm not saying that it won't, but I've got jigs. I've got some of my original jigs that I tied still in the box. I mean, like this one here, I tied, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And then, you know, I've got these other ones here that are just as old, that are just hammered. You know, there's like hardly any fiber left in them. Like there's some fiber here, and there's a little bit left on this side, and not really on the top. And this thing is just ruined fish. I mean, you can see the eyes are pretty much scratched off. You can see all the teeth marks on it. I mean, these are great little baits. And then I've got some flash boo in here, and this one, just trying that out. I couldn't really tell you if that makes a difference or not. It looks cool, but you know, I don't really think you need to get all fancy with these. I really don't. I've tied hundreds of these now, and I'll bet you out of all the different colors I've tied, I've stuck with really two colors, to be honest with you. Black and then this brown. And honestly, could I get away with just black? Probably. Then this year, that's probably what I'll do. So now I'll just go ahead and start painting on this head cement. This stuff dries pretty quick. It doesn't stink really bad, so you don't have to worry about, you know, breathing down a bunch of bad fumes. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, if this is water based or not. It doesn't even really say on the package, which it doesn't really matter, I guess. I mean, as long as you're not breathing a bunch of this. And then I'll go ahead and get a nice coat of this on here, and you know, the thread will absorb a fair amount of this to start. You can kind of, maybe you can see in there that it's kind of the shiny areas are getting a little duller. But I'll go ahead and get this good and saturated, I guess, so that it's, you know, a nice solid wrapping of thread. And then yeah, I'll let it set up for, you know, at least a few hours. Generally, I'll just hang these, and I'll put them on some separate bait hangers, and go ahead and let that cure up overnight. You don't really have to wait overnight. Of course, it'd be better, but anyways, yeah, that kind of gives you a quick little episode 1 on creating these jigs. And again, I wouldn't go out and buy and spend a bunch of money. I mean, you're looking at $2 to $3 a piece on this stuff. You know, maybe upwards of $5. You know, the glue's probably in that $6 to $7. I mean, the glue's probably the most expensive stuff. And again, you can get a package of the pre-painted black. I used to always paint all my jigs different colors, or with different powder type paints, and maybe add some glitter or not. And in all honesty, this black pre-painted 4/0 1/4 ounce Picasso ball head has outperformed anything else I've ever tried. Even the tungsten ones that I used to make. And the tungstens, you know, I guess if you were, you know, making contact with different types of structure, that could come into play and be helpful. But you know, for a swimming style bait, which on Game Over, you're going to see a lot of material that talks about these moving style baits. We're going to get into a lot of different types of jigs, a lot of different types of crankbaits, swim baits, chatter baits. You know, we're really going to give you a very good, thorough overview of what baits we have found over the years to be extremely productive, and again, to make you as consistent on the water as we possibly can. And the same for us too. I mean, we've spent a lot of time and years kind of honing this in. So hopefully the things that we show you and the stuff that if we do a good job of explaining it to you, that it'll help you have a better day on the water. So thanks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, like us on Facebook, and if you've got any questions or comments, you know, go ahead at the bottom and plug that in, and we'll get, either myself or Don or Bob will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thanks.